Hello and welcome to this video, and this video is going to be called Advice for Young Musicians. If you haven't seen my videos before, my name's Andy Edwards. I'm a drummer, producer and educator. As a drummer, I have played with people like Robert Plant and on the sort of progressive rock scene. I have produced dance music in my past, and I've also been a music lecturer in a variety of colleges, and I've been able to see the music education system here in the UK from the inside. Now on this video, what I want to talk about is the roots and progression for young people who are interested in making music, and I want to examine those and try and explain what I think is going on at the moment here in the UK. So this is going to be very UK centric, but within doing that, I hope I can help and provide some guidance for young musicians. It's going to have stuff in that I don't think anyone else really says. I'm going to be talking about how mental health impinges on creativity and music making, and strategies to align yourself to make your mental health better. So if you are a young musician that's found you've got a real interest in music, and you're feeling maybe anxious about certain things or getting very low, depressed about certain things, then this video is for you. I'm going to try and show you how to traverse this actually very complex and prejudiced against career path. And as soon as I say career path, we get into the weeds straight away. Does any of us who love music and want to make music, do we want it because as a career because that's our choice, or do we see choosing it as a career as a way of solving a problem? And the problem is, hopefully by having a career in music you will get paid for doing what you want to do. That's the idea, and that's out there in society. But the thing is, if you actually look at the music industry and see how it works, the music industry is a huge industry. It's a £1 billion industry here in the UK. It's a £1 billion industry in the US and all over the world. That's obvious. People who live here in the UK, one of our biggest exports, I would say, once you get outside of this country and you get past people thinking of, the King and Buckingham Palace and cups of tea and people with bowler hats, the thing that they will know more about this country than anything else is the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin. That is our great export. And so this has created an industry, and that industry over the last few years, because of COVID and because of the recession and all sorts of things like this, the very highly skilled and strong industry we have here in the UK has been bashed, right? It's not the only thing that's been bashed. So as soon as you say you want to have a career in music, the thing you're going to come up against is everyone around you, your parents and your school and everybody will try and, deep down they'll go, well, they'll patronise you, say, oh, that's really good. But deep down they think what you're saying is that you want to be Ed Sheeran or Adele, or Nicki Minaj, that you want to be a pop star. Now, being a pop star is a very tiny job within the music industry. The music industry is full of all sorts of different jobs, I am proof to that. I've earned my living by playing in covers bands. I've played drums for artists, all sorts of different artists. I've made money out of making records and selling records. I've made a tiny amount of money out of royalties. I've made my money out of teaching music, both one-to-one, privately and in colleges. I've made my money by producing records for people. I have made my money by doing arts workshops, working on arts compositions, with arts funding. I have made my money through doing a YouTube like this. I have a Patreon that makes money. I have a Bandcamp that makes money. I've made money by creating merchandise. I can go on and on and on, right? And one of the things you realise is that me as a professional musician is I've supported myself by doing a lot of different things and a lot of allied skills, right? So if you're a young musician watching this, the first thing I want to say is the music industry is more than just being a pop star, and it has an incredibly wide skill set within it. You know, there's people who work in the industry that install PAs. There's people who work on radio stations. There's people that make musical instruments, sell musical instruments, distribute musical instruments. People who run fan websites. There's people who do music photography. They make music videos. There's people who do all sorts of different production jobs, from, you know, going in and recording a band to setting up the live sound at Glastonbury in link with a video. It just goes on and on and on. There are hundreds of jobs. Now, the thing is, you have to distinguish between that and being a pop star. Now, most of you probably want to be a pop star, or you want to be a rock star. That's the thing you're saying, right? And the world around you is going, you don't stand a chance of doing that. And there's some truth in this, right? But there's also the fact that I believe if you're a young person and you make the aim of being a creative artist, you point yourself and going, I'm going to try and write songs and make songs. And if you're a musician and you don't write songs, you're going to have to find somebody who does and work with them. And if when you're very young, right, you aim at doing this, because when you're young, especially when you're under 18, you don't have to get a job and support yourself. So you're worrying about supporting yourself in the future, but you don't now. Now, it's a little bit like having a record deal. If you're living with your guardians or parents, you know, and they're looking after you or whatever, it's a little bit like having a deal. You could spend your time doing music. And I believe if you aim at being a creative music maker, making creative music, not playing covers, not playing other people's stuff or any of that stuff, that's stuff you're going to do later. The first thing you need to do is learn how to be a creative musician. And the key word here is creative. That's really important. And by going down that line, you will be able, if you are taught correctly, in a good college that knows what they're talking about, you will be taught to goal set. So it will be being very clear on what you want to achieve as a musician, and then working out the skill sets you have that can get you there, and the skill sets you haven't that you need other people, because making music and getting music out there is a communal activity. Right, this is why we have record deals, because they pull a whole different bunch of skill sets together that can help the artist in realizing what they're trying to do. In doing this, you will find that you have allied skills. Now, I believe that people who make money out of music, they make money out of the allied skills, right? They don't get paid for performing. We love performing. We love writing music. We love making music. That's not what you're getting paid for. There's always an allied skill, you know. So people who are have a real strong interest in music and love it and understand what music is, but are great at, say, Photoshop, they might find that they start to do like t-shirt designs, and they start to do like album cover design. And because they understand the music genre, which is the key thing, they're able to do that. But it's those allied skills. Now you'll probably say, what about someone who drums in a band? Surely they're doing what they want to do. Well, no, because they're having to play other people's material. If they're working for other people, and the allied skill is the ability to do that. Now you go on the YouTube and look at all these drum tuition videos, and they're all telling you how to do like these gospel chops, or play really fast, or do this or do that. And no one's actually talking about the skills required to get out there and earn some money in a band, which is being able to network, being able to be a decent person that gets on with people, being able to learn large amounts of material very quickly and perform it very well, play loads of different styles of music and play it in a way which you please the musical director or the artist, and you are able to take instruction from them. You may have to have a style that you can rein in so you don't shine. That's very important for doing a lot of commercial work. You just sit there and don't shine. If you're playing for a pop artist, say if you're a drummer, for example, you may have to trigger backing tracks, trigger lighting, trigger video, and that's a skill. So these are the skills you're going to require. You're going to have a really good drum kit with a tech that sounds great. You're going to have to know how to tune drums, right? The thing of playing it, in most bands, nobody wants to say this, but in most acts, if you've got a decent groove and a couple of fills under your belt, that's what's required. But it's the other skills that are really difficult, and everything is like that. Absolutely everything is like that. If you're a songwriter and you're writing songs, right, and then you go to get a deal, record deals don't sign songwriters, publishers sign songwriters. So straight away, you'll be going for the wrong thing. So you have to say, well, am I an artist or I am a songwriter? Well, I'm both. I'm a singer-songwriter. Something invented by Bob Dylan. It's a feature of rock and roll, never existed before. And as the music industry has gone on now, it's existing less and less. There's much less singer-songwriters. And so if you're being signed as an artist, what do you look like? What's your image like? You know, can you perform? Can you deliver? Have you got charisma? Those are all the allied skills. If you're a songwriter, do you know how to write for a specific audience, be able to put across certain ideas that are going to chime in with the culture that is out there now? All these things are the skills that you have to become aware of, right? The best way to find out what you are best at is by, when you're young, aiming at being a creative musician. Okay, that's what I believe. And in doing that, you find your skill set. I have taught for 30 years. I've had little kids in my class, 16 years old, not little kids, but teenagers in my class of 16 years old, all sat there, all with their heavy metal t-shirts on, with all the spiky writing, and all they want to do is, you know, rock. That was what it's like, especially when I started in the 90s, or they wanted to be Nirvana or Radiohead. That was the thing, maybe Pearl Jam as well. And I know I've kept in contact with these people for 30 years. And when I look what they're doing, they're working in the industry, but not necessarily in some metal band. A couple of them did. You know, I'm thinking of one guy that did, but he also then he was very good at putting on gigs, and he ended up running a metal venue. Another guy that I know, he was really good on the video side, and he started creating videos for his band, and because they were so great, people then started to ask him to create videos for them, and now he makes part of his income by filming music videos for all sorts of styles of music. So I can attest this is the case, all right? So if I just sum up what I have just said for you young musicians who are watching it, or older musicians, because it's predominantly old people who watch this channel, so I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but you might have a young musician you know, and you go, have a check out this old guy Andy, it's actually quite useful. I'm hoping you'll do that, and you know, and I'm not interested in attracting young people to my channel, because once they watch this, they're not going to want to be interested in watching videos on Genesis. So, but I did want to say this because it's a part of my experience that I have. So to condense what I've just said down, you need to be clear on your goals. You got to know where you want to go. In that, you have to analyse what skill sets you've got and what you haven't got, and then the best way of achieving your goals when you're young, I think, is to aim at working towards making creative music. So you might be the singer, you might be the songwriter, you might be both, but you might be a drummer, you might be a guy that's interested in production. But what I would do is ally yourself to someone who's trying to make original creative music, not try and go for the money straight away. And in doing that, you will learn the high skill level. You know, musicians that go straight to playing, you know, cover versions, they're going to end up in a cover band, and that's it. And if they've been trained to play like a parrot from the grades pieces, and then they walk into a studio and there's someone writing a song and they say, can you come up with a part for this? They are going to be stumped. It does not develop the skill set. Now you can see here, now I am coming on to be a little critical of the music education stroke progression that we have here in the UK. So let's talk about that a little bit. All right. So a young person, they go to school, right? One likes football, somebody's really into maths, you know, somebody's really into like animals, okay? That's their interest. Now, I believe for society to work well, it's best to have people working in an area that they like, because they produce great results. Now, we live in a post-industrial society now here in the West. In the old days, you didn't have that choice. If you wanted to put bread on the table, you would have to go down to the local factory, and working class people would just have to do that job, you know, and hope they don't lose their fingers if they're a guitarist in whatever machine they were operating. But I believe in a Western society that we have now, we should be able to create wealth and support people in finding out the thing inside that they want to do and fulfilling that. That for me is the highest goal of a society, and it's the highest goal of an education system. Now, here in the UK, and I don't always like it elsewhere, we have been swindled into believing that the education system is about getting jobs. Right? And as I say that, you'll go, well, isn't that the case? But think about it. Universities, schools, colleges studying archaeology, philosophy, history, what were the events that created the Second World War, what are the features that create the tundra, right? All these things, education is not about getting a job. Education is the system we have that humanity passes on the body of knowledge to the next generation. That is what education is. And we can broadly chop education down the middle and say education is about the search for truth and facts, and that's allied to the sciences, and education is allied to aesthetics, ethics and morality, and that is really comes from the arts, although we've passed it on to philosophy and other humanities subjects. And then those subjects in the universities have got bogged down by one specific type of philosophy, which is the sort of phenomenological, existential, postmodernist, cultural Marxist philosophy that we have. And people think I have a real problem with that. I don't. What I have a problem is that being the only thing that's taught and brainwashing people to thinking that's the way the world is, right? And that's a big feature of the education system. But if you just back up to that young person that's at the school and someone like football and someone likes, flying their model aeroplanes or whatever it is, I think the school is there in the early days to teach a couple of skill sets which intuitively someone would not amass. So this is a very important thing with education. People can amass certain skills intuitively, right? So if you just leave them to it, they do. So we don't need to teach people to walk and talk because the environment and biology means that happens without you having to sit someone down and train them to do it. But skills like reading, writing and arithmetic, and also doing music and playing musical instruments, they're only going to happen if someone is sat down and made to do it. It's not going to happen for everybody. In terms of reading, writing, arithmetic, those are the 3 R's that we have here in the UK. Those have been seen as the sort of platonic subjects that everybody needs to learn from the age of 4. Right, so you take people to school, and some people lap that up, and other people don't lap that up. And when they don't lap that up, it starts to create some sort of trauma because they are in a room, and everyone else around them, they're 5 years old, and everyone's getting this subject, and they're not getting it, and then they think, I don't understand it, and then the teachers go, like, why don't you understand it? And in some cases, the teachers might even shout at the little kid. Right, and the little kid gets frightened, and then he starts to put up fight or flight. So you start to get all angry because you're not that great at that, right? You're not so good at maths and English, right? Now, yes, those skills need to be taught, but also the school system's got to identify, right, well, how do we boost this person up? So if they have, and it's highly likely that if they're not so good at especially maths, I know some musicians are brilliant at maths, but on the whole, teaching students as I do, it might be that their skill sets elsewhere. They might be brilliant at sport. And in a school system, if you're brilliant at sport but rubbish at maths, there's no problem because you're going to get supported. Everyone's like, they can't add up, but look, they win all the races in when they do the games. That's not great. So they get a big pat on the back. If your skills within music, then you're in a place probably where there's no music specialist in there. They don't know about creativity. They don't know how music works. And they're trying to direct you through a system which is not going to propel you up. But maybe at home, you have parents that are really into music, maybe they're musicians, and on top of that, maybe they have some spare cash. So what they can do is they can take you down to the local music school and they can drop you in with a music teacher that here in the UK is charging £30-35 an hour to teach that person. So straight away, we get a class divide here. It's happening at the moment, right? If you go into a school here in the UK and you want music lessons, you'll have to have peripatetic music lessons in schools that are even more expensive than the ones that you do in the local music school, right? If we look at the preponderance of the more less privileged, less rich kids, they tend to like urban music, and urban music can be made electronically. And I don't think anyone's stated this, because if you look at hip hop, and you look at dance music, where those forms came out of. Hip hop came out of, underprivileged black people in America that didn't have access to synthesizers and PAs and all that sort of stuff. So they started to make records with 2 turntables and a microphone, which is unbelievably ingenious, right? And that is entirely created by black American musicians, as is dance music originally, entirely. I'm just saying this because people have accused me. When I've said if you look at early jazz, it was actually all sorts of different people contributing to that music, and then Afro-Americans, or as I've been told, I can't say that, black Americans, I've said is okay, so I'll say that. This is the world we live in, I've got to step carefully. So what black Americans have take us archaic folk form that had developed in America and turn it into a high art form, and that happened probably 20 years after the genesis of jazz has started. So, but that is an aside. So, where was I? I go off on tangents, I do go off on tangents. We take a little break because I talk very fast, and it's all very intense, and there's a lot to take in, and I think I naturally will go on a little aside so you can have a breather and go, he said a lot there. So let's get back into it, shall we? So, a little kid at school, if they are not well off, or their parents aren't well off, they're probably not going to be able to access instrumental lessons, right? There might be a guitar in the house and they can start to strum away, but then they're going to go down the route of sort of a punk route, which I think is a great route, but that route doesn't exist so much anymore in our culture. But the sort of electronic music route exists. But again, to do that properly, you're going to need access to the technology, to do that properly. And so straight away, at a primary school level, right, you have a situation, primary school here in the UK is 4 to 11, it's that age. We have a class divide in terms of access to music. If you're a working class kid in a school and you're good at football, they've got no worries, because the school will accommodate for that. We're not accommodating for music education straight away. This creates a number of different worlds. You have, here in the UK at least, you have a contingent of young people making urban music, hip-hop, dance music, and they are doing that outside the music system. They're going in and out outside the school, and I'm going to be honest, it's like all the music hubs that deliver music peripatetic on the whole aren't dealing with that sort of electronic urban music form. And the music hubs, or the peripatetic music structure in primary school, is really based around the classical model, and that has developed a thing called, here in the UK, the grades, and the grades treats rock music as though it's a classical thing. So you have repertoire and you have pieces and you have to learn them, and you're marked on how accurately you interpret these pieces, which is completely unlike the way the music industry works. Also, I have a problem with the grades in that, in terms of actual technical skill is not necessarily measured by the grades, right? What is measured is your ability to perform certain things. And also, my experience of grades is often when someone is assessing the grades, it is not necessarily a drummer that's assessing the grades. And I know of examples where students have not actually nailed it, all right, and have had to fudge it and are not playing it technically correct. But because the person's not aware of the technique who's assessing it, they've got a really high mark, right? Whereas other people that just were really great technically and were good interpreters, but just failed to be able to play the track through, they don't do so well. Now I don't have that big a problem with the grades, but the thing is, here in the UK, so in terms of the education system, as soon as you get to 11 and you get to high school, this government has been in for ages, has basically slowly been taking music out of the curriculum, and there is now no real progression through, right? Once you get to the schools, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm not going to tell you who told me this, but there is a pressure on head teachers to stop at 13, 14 people doing peripatetic lessons because it interferes with their ability to get GCSEs. Here in the UK, they're going to have to do maths and English. If they don't pass it, they're going to have to do it. They're 19. And we have gone from a system where you had GCSEs going towards level 3, so you could do an academic route, which would be A levels, and you could do, say music, geography, and physics, and that would be an academic music qualification that would be great if you want to go off and do music history. But if you wanted to be a vocational musician, you would then go to the sort of college I taught at, which was a level 3 BTEC, which would look at the actual skill set, the allied skills, and the development of a goal-setting structure that was quality-based, so you could pop out with the skills and the ability to structure your own, route into the music industry, which of course, that's the other thing with the industry I haven't sold. There's no job application for the music industry. Most people are self-employed. Now, this brings on to another thing. With local colleges, they're measured by the uptake in that area for certain jobs, right? Now, in the town I live in, there is actually a huge music industry around here. There's music colleges, there's venues, there's actually people who make musical instruments, there's people who build stuff, there's a whole bunch of all sorts of structure and jobs right here in my town for people who've got allied music skills. But they measure it using a system that looks at employability with companies. It doesn't take self-employed musicians in. So it looks like, there's no music jobs in this little town. Of course there isn't, but there's no music industry there. So do we really want to fund that college for a music course? And also, if you lie that with the idea, which is quite apparent, that in the future we're not going to travel anywhere, so you're going to stay in your town, right? You're not going to look and move elsewhere to get work. There's no idea that this dream that my students had, that they'd come to my college, get the skills, get the quality, get onto a degree, then go down to London, get into where the real industry was and work in there. That's slowly being eroded. But if we back up to the high schools, the secondary schools, the only route now really is peripatetic and music GCSE, but they're changing the structure of the level 3. They've moved to a thing called T levels, which has been very confusing for people, and there isn't a music T level. But now Rishi Sunak has announced a new type of A level, which is sort of 5 subjects. So music, if you take music, will be demoted to this bit here, and that will be an academic subject. Now, what do I mean by that? You might be learning a little bit of GarageBand and how, say, you have to write an essay on, say, how copyright works and stuff like this. But going back to that Glastonbury scenario, when Glastonbury happens, there's a lot of people earning a lot of money by organising the live broadcasts, for the photographing of those things, the recording of those things and all that stuff. And that requires a huge amount of technology, and that technology is extremely expensive, right? So if I now back up to 30 years ago when I started teaching, you had the same scenario there, and what it was a recording studio cost £500,000 to £1 million to have one, right? So they were very rare. I went for years before I even stepped into a recording studio, and then it was only a little recording studio. But the Abbey Roads and the Rockfields and the Real Worlds back then, they were places that you never went. A normal person wouldn't go there. They cost millions. And it was a dark, esoteric art to know how those studios worked, right? If you knew how those studios work, you could apply for a job and get to work in there, but nobody did. Colleges set up, and they would desperately try and bring an 8-track reel-to-reel and a little mixing desk, and they would create an approximation of the big studio, right? But in that, they could sort of prepare people more than school could, because they could say, well, we have got this is basically how this works, and the student could get their basic understanding of signal flow and gain structure and all those types of things, so that when they worked in the big studio, they got a job, they could come in, hopefully get a job for nothing where they could make tea for people, and they could then learn those skill sets. And I promise you, everybody in there has gone through that route. Or they were privileged and someone said, do you want to just go and work at my friend's recording studio over the summer? That'd be really nice for you. This is going to be overriding message to you young people, is the aspect of privilege and how that works in this system. Anyway, so now everyone can get a recording studio in their house. And beyond that, my kids, my 12-year-old kid has got apps on their phone with loops and beats, and they can create tracks in there. Now you might say that's not proper music, but I promise you that is how pop music is being made. It's being constructed out of bits, you know, this drum, this keyboard part. People are grabbing chord progressions. Don't need to know about harmony now. Don't need to be able to play anything. You can grab a MIDI chord progression, drop it in, put a drum beat on, drop it in, put the mic up, rap over that, release. That is how pop music, whether you like it or not, that's how that's working at the moment. Playing live, real instruments, that's a luxury. It's an anomaly now. Okay? So the structure for young people that I had was where you went to school and everybody listened to like AC/DC or the Smiths, or, you know, they listened to Echo and the Bunnymen, and all those were bands, and there was this idea of the band, and if you wanted to be cool at school you wanted to join a band, and which means, and you had the punk, back then you had the punk route, which meant you got hold of a drum kit and you got your basic rock down, you formed a band. It was got your basic rock beat down, formed a band, they got 3 chords, and you could like start to write songs, and if you looked cool and you had some good messages in your songs, some sing-along choruses, you could get a deal and get out there, and you learnt your craft by doing that. I don't think that's as strong anymore. So we're getting to a critical point here, aren't we? I've only glanced upon the fact that, you know, the pop music industry, by which everything is judged, is primarily made on computers, and it's pulling different stuff together, right? And I think in the future, as AI kicks in, pop music will really be catered for by machines that are just analysing the demographic and then just churning stuff out. But when Glastonbury happens, Glastonbury is a multi-million pound operation. Download here in the UK is a multi-million pound operation. The Eurovision Song Contest is and this requires a huge amount of technical skill by technical people who work in the industry. And the only way to ally yourself with that, if you're a young person, I'm afraid, is to get into a music college that can get as close as teaching you those allied skills. In terms of the actual musical skills, everything is on YouTube, right? So if you want to understand how to do stuff, as long as you can traverse and get to the videos that are telling you the right way to do things, that's really difficult, but it's all there. And often what I found with musicians, if they have that motivational interest, they will get there on their instruments themselves. What they won't get is the allied skills of how the industry works, how you network, what jobs are there, what the skill sets are, and then access to the technology to be able to develop those sorts of skills. Now, those music colleges are out there and they exist. And what I believe is, as AI kicks in the future, what we're going to need from young people is creative, technologically savvy people, right? Because that is the skill set that you will need to traverse through maybe a society where no one travels, where everything's done online, and that where AI is replaced so many jobs and is trying to get its fingers in the creative process. And here we come to the big question mark of this talk, which is the original reason why I wanted to do this talk. I just don't know whether AI will be able to replace the actual creative aspects of making stuff. I'm using AI quite a lot. I use AI online. It's like, say I'm creating a Patreon post, I haven't got much time, rather than me writing the Patreon post, I know what I want to say, so I'll go, write a Patreon post, or talk about this, I want to make this point, I want to mention that and do that, and it comes up with a nicely created thing, right? And that's really interesting. The other day, I was trying to push it to actually be creative. I didn't realise I was doing it, but I was expecting it to come up with like an X factor and it just couldn't do it. All it could do was to amalgamate things together. Now this is really interesting when you look at postmodernist philosophy, because part of what postmodernist philosophy claimed was that everything is socially constructed, that there's no real concrete objective idea of truth, that artists do not, there's no such thing as an author. It's called the death of the author. They are not creating stuff. They're basically just, amalgamating other stuff together that's existed. And the stuff they're amalgamating together is part of a meta-narrative which promotes power of certain groups. That's a sort of postmodernist, really clumsily simplified. And this really affected the arts. And because the burgeoning art form of the latter 20th century was music, it really influenced music. And I think it was incredibly powerful in the way it influenced music. Rock and roll was basically, American jazz, Afro-American blues, country music, all mixed together in a big hodgepodge, but then hitting this postmodernist era. And the idea in the 60s that you could go and take a blues track, by, Leadbelly, and you could take electric guitar from here, and maybe a Bob Dylan song which is taken from an old country song or whatever, you can put all those together and repackage it up, and that somehow creates this new piece of art. This is what's created all the legal arguments, that we've had about musicians in the 60s. Who wrote Hey Joe? Where's that come from? And all this type of stuff. And when you get to people like David Bowie and like Robert Fripp and King Crimson, a lot of these 70s artists are using a sort of chance method. Brian Eno does it. It's a chance method. Now I do it. I've criticised postmodernism on here, but creatively I think there's some really interesting concepts in there. They're just limited. That's the problem. They're limited. But that idea that music could be packaged together from other things, I think, meant that, say, when hip-hop emerged, and you've got, going back to that analogy of two turntables and a microphone, and if I get two records and I learn how to do back-to-back scratching, I can take a riff off one and then scratch that onto another, and I can keep that riff going forever. The coolest riff in this track, so I've got Led Zeppelin album, I can just go back-to-back like this, back-to-back like that, playing the riff over and over again, and then someone can get a microphone and they can rap how they feel, and the creativity is coming out of how they rap, and you accept the fact that this has been a sort of regurgitation of Led Zeppelin. It's not Led Zeppelin anymore. With then the advent of digital technologies, which is basically the ability to infinitely replicate binary numbers, right? So, material now can be replicated at the drop of a hat. You don't have to put a record on and put a cassette tape and hit record and wait for the record to be over. It literally, like some super virus, you could just put a track out there, and if 1 million people click on it, it's suddenly replicated 1 million times. And we have this postmodernist idea that everything can be regurgitated. So aesthetically, this is something nobody talks about. Aesthetically, at the moment, as we're in the arse end of the postmodernist era, we're moving into this new era that nobody quite understands what it is. The acceptance that AI can produce creativity is there because postmodernism have informed us that we can cut stuff up and randomise stuff, and it's just a regurgitation of the meta-narrative. And also postmodernist makes a claim that, there's other elements in art that is not the intention of the artist. It's this idea that, if you find something great, then it is great, And so that means that people can just sort of do whatever they want, and as long as lots of people like it, it's okay. It's that type of idea. And this is then butting up against sort of identity politics. So you feel that, certain people are not allowed to say certain things. Certain people can say certain things. You find that certain artists are being closed down for making, things, saying offensive things, which I don't like. But then other artists are being allowed to say these offensive things. And in the identity areas where critical aesthetic, sort of aesthetic criticism has been ramped back, say for hip-hop. I love hip-hop, but when I listen to hip-hop now and I listen to the values that are being propounded in it, it does seem to be it's I don't even want to say what it is. It's racist. That's what it is. Not racist against white people, it's racist against black people. That's what it is. It's a big multi-million elite power system, exploiting black artists by presenting, not all hip hop, Kendrick Lamar's a genius, all that type of thing. But there's an aspect now where they are presenting a sort of horror show, right? And you feel like you can't. I'm talking quiet. I'm on YouTube. It could be 1,000 people watching this, but I'm talking quiet like nobody will notice I'm saying this. This is now, if I sort of condense down what we've got, the education system is conducive for privileged people, right? It's based on a classical model. It sort of favours instrumental music, but out there, the predominant music out there is electronically created music. Electronically created music has become, as a sort of de rigueur approach, just a sort of amalgamation of other things. It's like a Frankenstein, that's how you make music. AI is now coming in, and AI is able to make... See, AI it's much further away of creating a Louis Armstrong or a Charlie Parker or a Jimi Hendrix. It can't do that. It can create Louis Armstrong if Louis Armstrong already exists. What it just can't do is innovate. That's basically what I'm saying. All of you watching this, especially all you privileged people who have got money, you are going to lose your jobs in the next few years. Right? AI will be able to do it. If you're a lawyer or a solicitor, or you write wills or something like that, and you get paid a ton of money, within now already, AI will do the job better than you. Doctors, right? You make mistakes, doctors. When you look at a patient, you've got to remember all that training you had, every single symptom, every single thing, every single case, and look at that, and you've got to try and work out. And you make mistakes and people die sometimes, doctors. Right? Why not use AI? AI could diagnose much better. Right? AI is going to be able to do everything we do except innovate. If our species does not learn to innovate properly, and innovation requires a freedom of expression and a freedom of speech. All right? It requires training in the allied skill areas so people are able to put their free expression into the world. And if you go right back to what I started to young musicians who are watching this, your job is to be creative. Now, if you go to music college, I promise you that on that first day, what they will do, they will hand you a bunch of cover versions. Those cover versions will be from 20, 30, 40 years ago, and you'll be stuck in a room and you'll have to play guitar and you'll have to learn whatever it is, Dancing Queen or Paranoid or, Enter Sandman. I've seen it all a million times before. Or Valerie, perhaps, will be one of the ones you'll have to play. And you'll scrunch your way through that completely uncreatively. Then they will put you on stage and video you, and they will assess you on your ability to badly play these cover bands. That's what they're going to do. And it does not teach the skills required to operate in this creative industry, which is $1 billion industry that has tons of jobs for people if they only have those skills, and you have to know how to get into it, and you have to be taught that as well. Okay? So what is my advice for young musicians starting out? Well, YouTube's there. Okay? YouTube is there, and utilise it. I promise you, in the next few years, all music education is going to be on YouTube anyway. And again, the front end of that, the teasy end, will be free, but you're going to have to pay to access that. Private tutors, some of them are fantastic. They are not being measured in the way that the schools and colleges are being measured. So if you get the right one, not someone just taking you through the grades and just say this is the next grade we're going to work on, but someone who's worked in the industry and knows the skills required to work in the industry, they can tell you what you need to do, and they can prepare you so you then seem attractive to that industry. And once you're attractive and you're sat there, they will come along, right? Hopefully. If they don't come along, you can go back to your teacher and say, why aren't they biting? And I don't know. And the teacher, when I'm teaching, this is why I don't think I can be replaced with AI. Most of the time, I haven't got a clue what the answer is. All the easy stuff I do in my sleep. I can't do my double stroke rolls properly, I can't get into a band. I can just sit down and tell them that with their eyes closed. But what always happens, we get to some aspect of that person, and it's not a negative aspect, it's a part of their person. their personality or identity or something, or their biology, I don't know what it is, but you get to a certain point with that student where they specifically cannot get past this thing. And then at that point, it's usually, I'm going, I don't know what this is. Let's try things out. And I'm trying things and I'm trying things and I'm taking feedback with my position of what I know and creating a strategy specific for that student that helps them. And once that happens, I log it in here. And then when I see that again, I'm with someone else, I know what it is. Well, I've had 30 years of doing that, so I've got a lot of these things logged. But even now, this week, you know, I have been chatting, not teaching, but just chatting to a couple of musicians who have come and asked me for advice. And I was on that, you know, with one I was unearthing stuff that happened at school, which was making it difficult for them to... their fear of making mistakes, which meant they wouldn't practice. You know, that was something. I've come across that a number of times, but to get specifically to what the actual thing was interesting. And then another person I was talking to about just left-hand technique and a very specific thing that they couldn't do. They understood all the things and they were doing the exercises, but there was a blind spot there, and I was trying to fix that, and it was hard. Right, that's what you're paying for, is that point with the teacher going, that's not what you're having real difficulty with this, all this type of thing. So that's a route through, you know, is that sort of tuition. The here in the UK, the progression that you had that went primary school peripatetic, high school GCSE. Then you had the choice of going the vocational route, doing a level 3 qual, or do the academic route, and then maybe you went into university. But if you got the vocational route, you may be able to make the jump at 18, 19, which is the time you've got to do it, I'm afraid, into the industry, right? Now I'm hoping at least some of my ex-students are out there watching this video, and I hope they will be able to chime in with their experience and say, yeah, this is what I had happen to me, and this is what I found useful, and this is how I gained access to the industry. That progression through like that, which is like school, you know, GCSEs, you know, level 2 quals, and then into sort of a vocational path or an academic path. And the academic ones go, they do a music degree, they might learn about music history, or they might become teachers. But if you want to go to the music industry, maybe you go on a specific songwriter course and you helped with songwriting. And so there is the universities also provide a vocational route. But and this is another fundamental thing. It goes right back to what I said at the beginning of this video, young musicians. What do you want to do, right? And I tell you, you don't know. You don't know what you want to do, but you know you want to do it. That's your problem. You need help. Now, let's get on to the back. You know, have I finished with that bit? So, yeah, my point is here, is the system's changing here in the UK, and it's the denial of that. And Rishi Sunak has announced that with degrees, they will not hand out loans. So you will not be able to borrow loans on a degree where you can't prove that you're going to be able to get into a job where you pay that back. They're looking at that. So they're going to pull funding for those degrees. Now, those music degrees won't disappear, but they will shrink and they will be filled up with very rich kids. Now, you have to ask yourself, when you look at the music industry, and it's really interesting to do this, you know, if you look at someone like a Harry Styles, or you look at a Sam Smith here in the UK, you look at these people, and if you examine their backgrounds, ask yourselves this: were their parents relatively wealthy, or did their parents have access to the music industry, or both? And you will start to see, and I just came up with 2 names randomly then, but you will start to see the idea that people like Noel Gallagher that are going to come through the industry. You know, it is happening to some extent in urban music, but even there, that stuff's not crossing over. That's there for 6 months and it's gone. So the meat and potatoes of this video, the thing, because I've just been driving home, and Keir Starmer came on, and he was talking about his speech yesterday, and I thought a lot of people who watch my channel probably think I'm a conservative, and they probably think I'm right wing because of the stuff I've said, and I thought, I'm here because I want young people to get access to creativity, and I don't see it happening. And I see a whole bunch of things that are getting in the way. And I see an educated elite throwing out identity politics as an idea, which seems to me only to assuage their guilt of being educated and privileged. Right? That's what I see, sorry. And you can see a sort of, in that vacuum where nobody is talking to underprivileged people, right? If you take like the black community in the UK or the black community in the US, right? Those people are underprivileged. They're living in a situation where they're trapped in it, right? They are trapped in it, and it's racist, okay? It's racist, and they are kept there. They're kept there because people subconsciously, all this is true, right? We have to remove those barriers. We have to remove the barriers so that there needs to be some sort of redistribution, but that redistribution needs to be democratic. We can't become autocratic and then just start ordering people what to do. You know, here in the UK we pay about 20% tax, and that is autocratic. That's enough. The question is where is that money going? And is it going into rich people's pockets and to, you know, fund defence or whatever it is? And we should have a right and a say about where that money goes. And I have seen here in the UK funding being pulled for organisations that are dealing, say, with knife crime. And knife crime affects everybody. And as I said it, if you thought of young black people in the UK, that thought is wrong. We have to remove that idea. And what we have to do is help underprivileged kids. Bottom line. That's what I've done all my life, and that is what I'm arguing for. I don't like the elitism of jazz, because the elitism of jazz stops some working class, you know, or underprivileged kid that is got really musically able. They're not going to be able to access that. And as soon as they try and access that, they're going to have people going, you need to be able to do this, this, and this, and this, and you need to be like this, and part of this community, and these rich people, and this, and you'll need a lot of money because you need a jazz education, and if you haven't had a jazz education, and you don't know all that stuff, you're not a proper jazz musician. And that's what winds me up, right? I want to open the doors to scratch DJs, to, you know, heavy metal guitarists, to, you know, all these people should be allowed to come in and make improvised groovy music, which is fundamentally what jazz is. Sorry, that's what my rubbish definition is. I want to open the doors. I want access for people. I want the money spent in the right places. And fundamentally, I want our education system to fulfill the dreams and wants of people, right? And help them to traverse this culture that's coming, this epoch which is upon us, which is going to be entirely different to the epoch we were just in. And all the rules by which we're judging the future have gone. This is like that moment in 1961, 1962, where this flipped over into a completely different place, and we are flipping over again into a new cultural epoch, and the rules don't make sense anymore. And that's why everything's breaking down, and that's why things that seemed intuitive, you know, and a lot of that identity politics, a lot of, say, when you look at something like climate change, right? Climate change is being treated as this insane political football, you know, where there's some people that believe that they've got a divine right to demand everybody do a certain thing, even though we know that if in our little country in the UK, if we went to net zero, it would make a difference to the climate. And yet we're all walking around in October and it's like the middle of summer, right? And it's like, whichever way you start talking about this, a divide, the divide that is emerging is the re-emergence of a sort of tribal approach to culture. You belong to a group, you belong to a class, and everyone goes, yes, I know, Andy, I know you want to do the nice thing and just say that, you know, you're blind to colour and everyone should be treated. But you can't do that because, you know, these people that have been, you know, if they're in an underprivileged group, I was watching a talk about with somebody who'd gone to Cambridge, and there was all sorts of ethnic minorities at Cambridge, from, you know, millionaire families walking around saying they're underprivileged, whilst you've got people in this UK that nobody is looking after. And why is this? You'll say, well, Andy's on a political rant. Right, so let's get to the last, this is going to be a long video, let's get to the last bit of this discussion, right? The last bit. I believe that certain specific mental health issues, which are on the increase at the moment, especially in young people, are actually the flip side of a heritable trait which certain people have, which is towards intuitive, illogical, creative ability. This is the certain person that sees the world at being at fault. And often they see the world through themselves, so they see themselves at being at fault. They are essentially self-loathing. And in their self-loathing view of the world, they want to express that and in effect fix that. And these people fix the situation, and throughout human history, these people have been there to spur on the great changes in what human beings do, both scientifically and truth-based, and artistically, aesthetic, and morally based. They have made shifts, and often those shifts have come from a sort of unconscious place. Einstein did not dream up the theory of relativity and all the insanity that comes from that, all the nuclear bombs and everything. The whole 20th century can be seen as almost like Einstein and Darwin's vision, But Einstein dreamt that idea riding his bicycle through Italy. It came in the same way that creative inspiration comes in. And when you open yourself up to that, which is what all us musicians have been trained to do, right? What you're opening up is to something really mysterious. I've tried to talk about on this channel. I have tried to implement it in my own teaching, because that is the place where creative people who are cursed with creativity, because to be creative is to live off problems. The creative person needs problems. The creative artist needs aesthetic problems, right? So if you put a creative person in the room, they will go, I don't think we should have windows like this. I don't think we should have windows. We should have big tubes that have big mirrors on. They go up at the top of the house and they reflect the sun in directly, and it's like a warm glow. And why do you think that is? I don't know. I just think it would be better. That sort of insane left field thinking outside the box, right? We're going to need that. And the move towards tribalism, the move towards repressing what people say, repressing people's expression, all of that will only pull that in. And as we go into an era where AI is kicking in and then the metaverse is kicking in, and there's a move politically towards more authoritarian states like Russia and China and all that type of stuff, and the West is floundering. We're floundering here. We no longer understand the great meaning of what Western democratic liberal culture was, and we don't value we don't see it as in the positive. It just seems to be a big colonial mess that just put this person down and that person down. We just ignore the fact that if you go to any other culture at that time, it's far worse, basically. We ignore all that. We don't see the value. If you're in a Western liberal democracy right now, you don't understand the comfort and value that you are sat in, because you are sat watching my YouTube, probably in comfort, with heating, with some food in the fridge, and we are talking about free expression, and nobody will be watching this video, I hope, and saying, I didn't like what Andy said, so let's just take that away. All right? We need to preserve music education, arts education, to preserve those values that prop up the comfort and beauty and harmony of the place in which we live. Right? That's what we need to do as a culture. And we need to open our arms up to everybody, whatever they are, right? Whatever group they are. We will get away from all the prejudice by that mixing those people together as much as we possibly can, right? And for people who are human beings are basically good, I believe, right? And they will basically look after each other. And if we can all look after each other, that would be a wonderful thing. I have been looked after this week by people I don't know that well. Something's happened, and it's almost like being visited by angels. It's an incredible thing. People that have really stepped in to help me for no reason but just pure altruism, just to help me. And I have been incredibly moved by that. And it's made me think a lot about education and how that works and how we've lost the values. We're just training little automatons that will be compliant, that will be able to fit into some imaginary job that's based upon the sort of 1950s idea of an industrial, work landscape. I think it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I'm worried about it, as you can probably tell. Stuff has happened to me this year that has really compounded this, and I can't say much about that. But I really wanted to talk about this. For young people, right, this has not been that positive a talk. But if you are you are a young person, and what I've said has either interested you or worried you, or you want to just know a little bit more, my email is andyedwardsdrums@gmail.com. Now, I get a ton of emails, but if I find there's a lot of young people approach me, I will try and help. I cannot promise anything, but I will try and help you, especially those who are based in the UK. But anyone can message me, and most of the time it's like I get a ton of messages and people say, have you ever heard of the album by, Lancelot's Codpiece that came out in 1974. It's really brilliant. And then I'm supposed to check out all these albums. I do try to. But people who reach out for help, I will try and help. It's really hard for me to, but I will. I can't promise anything, but I will. And if I see a certain, like say people are saying, that video was really depressing, Andy, really depressing, and I don't know what to do now, and I felt it, and I'm like, I will carry on and do more videos like this. I have a vast experience of helping young people to access music and access creativity. And that is the key. Our education system needs to focus on creativity, and it needs to understand what creativity is. It needs to have creative people involved in the management of those systems, right? Creative people have a tendency towards a thing called creative incompetence. When they're in a position where they've got a job and they're in a certain system like a college or a school or a work environment and they're creative, they will emulate being incompetent so they don't get picked to go up the chain, because they don't want to sit behind a desk. They want to be on the floor doing their creative stuff, and they don't want to go there. So what you have across all systems is there's less creative people as you go up. Where you've got companies where there are creative people there, those are the companies that just the people who created YouTube, immensely creative, the visionaries that created YouTube and created me able to do this, they're visionaries, creative people. Without a doubt, they're creative people. And I'm sure if you go into YouTube, especially in the early days, you were going into a creative environment which is quite like counterintuitive and surreal and strange. Right? That is the only way to operate now in the future. We need to be able to create people who are creative but also have a strong morality. And morality is based in ethics for me. I think this is really important. They need to have a morality which is malleable. It can't be ideological, because it cannot then move for the changes. And if we look, a lot of the ideological identity politics that exists now will point out, they will go, look, there used to be slavery and then they stopped being slavery. Why did they stop doing slavery? Before they stopped slavery, they thought slavery was okay. Right? That is always the case. And I promise you, there's moral ideas now which are not okay, and everyone thinks they're okay because you're not allowed to question them. You have to question them. You have to have freedom of speech, freedom of expression. This is so important. And if those on the left shout at me, yeah, but there needs to be accountability, I don't care. I'm there. There you go. That's the tip of the iceberg of shutting people down. No, put up with the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. Right? Just that's the way it is. Get a thick skin, put up with the bad stuff to get to the good stuff, because the thing that you will sacrifice, what you will end up with, will be awful. Right? And people who have, you know, got out of very authoritarian states do not talk like this. Right? They don't talk like this. You are talking like this because there's a freedom of expression that you are taking for granted. Your ability to talk like this. So, that has been my... God, this is like over an hour. But that's the way it is, isn't it? So, that has been my video. That's been my advice to young people. If you're watching this, you may go, well, I don't think the education system's for me. But you might find when you get there, you haven't got the allied skills to negotiate your way through it. And that is something I've seen over and over again. So you need to be able to find those allied skills. The education system is going in a certain direction at the moment, without a doubt. Listening to Keir Starmer this morning on the radio here in the UK, I thought, you know, if Labour was to get in, they would probably put a little bit more emphasis on creativity, because they would probably have an initiative to want to make the experience of less privileged people not more. That's what I believe in. Everyone should have it in a Western liberal democracy with the ability to create the wealth that we do. Right? Why don't we spend it on making people get access to stuff that makes their life better? Not just getting jobs, but stuff that actually enriches their lives. And let's identify within that group the next geniuses that will be able to take us into the future and cure cancer, or work out a way for us all to get on. It's worth doing that, isn't it? And it's worth a bit of offence, you know, and a few Nazis getting to say their stuff and then get shut down because they're idiots, to be able to get to that. I think I'm done. If you like this video, like it. I don't feel I've scratched the surface of subject. Andy, you've scratched the surface of a subject here, and you know it's vast, and you want to be able to talk about it all, and you've talked for an hour, and you know you've only got like through 3% of it, and you know it's a dialogue, and you know you need to start to get the feedback back on what you've said, and then will take us down a certain route, and all those ideologues will be trying to catch me out, guys, saying, oh, you're changing your position. Yes, I am. Right? All Andy does is create clickbaity titles and just try and pull people in. Really? I've just spent an hour talking about this because I'm after clicks? Right? Oh, Andy, you know, he just talks about stuff that will whip people up. Really? Is that what I've just been talking about? Really? Go back and look at my videos, right? I believe I'm trying to do... if someone says he's trying to do it but he's failing, fair enough. I am trying to do something with this YouTube channel. I am trying to do something aesthetically, right? I am hemmed in because I am 55 years old and I'm a white middle-class English person. And there's enough people around there that say I shouldn't even be here doing this. I shouldn't be here even talking to you. There's too many white middle-class English people on YouTube having their opinions. Oh, is there? Maybe the demographics has created that. But within that, I am trying to reach out for this thing that I love, right? I've been criticised for sitting in front of my records. That is me. I love that. That changed my life. That changed my life there, right? I'm talking to you because I bought all those, right? And it gave me a viewpoint. Last week I did a video about, you know, being able to take a grain of sand like William Blake and finding a whole universe in. I found my universe in there. When I talk to you, everything I know came from that and watching Cosmos by Carl Sagan in 1979. That's everything I know. That's where I come from with those two things. That was a bit of a joke then, sorry. I'm doing this to get the conversation going, right? I'm sorry I'm old. And I'm sorry I'm like middle class, if you wanted to say I'm middle class. And if you've got me in that box, and that's the box you've put me in, fair enough. But I think you're an idiot for doing it. And I think that's fundamentally what's wrong with the whole world at the moment. Right? I am trying to do something that I've been doing all my life. And I feel I've got better at it now than when I was 20 years old and I was completely confused. We're supposed to be confused when you're 20 years old. Watch Harry Potter. Harry Potter's confused for the whole of it. It's Harry Potter that sorts it out. Dumbledore doesn't. He ends up dying. I'm Dumbledore. I'm going to end up dying. I'm talking to some little Harry Potter musician that's going to change the world. You're going to change the world. There's somebody out there that's going to change the world. And we do need a whole education system, you know, to go train thousands of people up to get to that one little Harry Potter that doesn't understand it, but through their specific skill set and talents and their frailties is able to change the system. Oh, now I've got to a Harry Potter analogy. I know I've got to the end of the video, and now I've said that, I feel calm inside. I've only done a Harry Potter analogy. I could have done a Star Wars one, could have done a Lord of the Rings one, and I don't do that here on this channel, but often when I was trying to teach young people, the amount of stuff I had to try and get across through the medium of the Harry Potter analogy. Very useful for now, because of this tribal world. You can't even yet mention Harry Potter by thinking a whole bunch of stuff, can you? I don't want to mention it. What a world we live in. God, everyone calm down, put your weapons down, right, give each other a hug, and, you know, ask them about their day and what they've been up to, how their kids are. You know, what they're trying to do, you know. Let's just, can we all just all try and get on, right? Because the fact is, we are now sit here arguing with each other and getting all irate, whilst now in Israel and in the Ukraine and in Palestine and in Russia, if you want to try to explain that, look what the hell is going on, right? And I tell you who's getting killed. Normal people who don't give a shit about this. Kids. Right? We need a solution to this. It comes from the education system. So stop training your kids to just have jobs and start training them to be able to solve the problems that we haven't been able to solve. Right? They have got the solutions. It comes from their creativity. Let them be creative. Stop hemming them in. I've got to the end now. The polemic did it. Oh, so I'll start and do me an hour and this is as long as my Frank Zappa video. So this is equal. This is a maximum length of video. This is a monster. This is a monster. No one's going to watch this, right? And he just clickbaity videos. That's all he does. Yeah, I know, because they're the ones people watch, and I do these ones as well. Nobody watches them, so they don't know they're there. And the amount of people that are at the end of this video after an hour and 10 minutes, right? And I'm pretty sure I said something pretty damn important at the end of this video. You know, I'm pretty sure I have, and I'm trying to get there to get to say these things. This is how my videos work. I come in here and I riff and I try and get to these things. I don't know where this is coming from. It's just coming from me and my experience, and if you're, you know, liking it, it's because you've got the same experiences. You're here because you like the same music I like, and then I'll start saying these same things, and then you get there. And if you're a kid watching this, you probably think I'm just an old bonkers bloke, right, sat in his room with his guitars, his cymbals, and his record collection. Yeah, I am. That's what I am, young'uns. Young'uns, nippers, future Harry Potters. I am a bonkers old bloke. I am. And I hope I've entertained you as well. And I wish you every bit of luck in what you're trying to do. I really genuinely do. I've spent a lifetime trying to do that, and I believe in it. And I'm saying it to you now. I might be old and bonkers, but I am sending you now the vibes over to you. Do the thing you want to do. Do the thing you love. Have no fear. If you like this, like it. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe and ring the notification bell. If you do want some advice from me, and you are a bit privileged, you got a bit of money, you can come over to my Patreon, and I can have all those people who can afford to do that there. I have to say that I've got a couple of people who can't afford the full thing, and I'm trying to help them out. So that's all I'm going to say. So, you know, just come across, give me an email, try and do that. If you are a rich person and you feel guilty, you can put money into my YouTube tip jar, right? And you can pay me, because I ain't that rich. So you can assuage your guilt by giving me some money. I am pretty skint at the moment. I can tell that. I've got my shirt, look at my camera. It's not Rick Beato you're looking at, you know. When I'm sat in a studio like Rick Beato, you don't have to put the YouTube money in anymore. But if you feel a bit guilty, because you're sat there going, yeah, that's me, you know, I got like music lessons, got to send my parents to pay. Yeah, put some money in then and pay it to me, and then I can say this stuff and I can assuage my guilt for being a musician. I don't know, assuaging guilt. Maybe I need to do a video on guilt assuagement, don't I? The hour. This is the longest video I've ever made. I'm pretty sure this is now the longest video I've ever made. I think I made one for Patreon that was an hour and a half long, but this is long. It's long, and now I don't want to stop because I've got into a new territory that I'm not used to. How many people are watching now? Put your hands up if you're watching. Let's have a look. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. What are you doing here? Oh my God. Well, I wish you. I know you're the ones who support me. You are. This is why we're all here. This is why this gets to happen. Bye bye. See you on the next video.